I know. Thank you. And thanks for that message too. Jeff, get out. I should have brought my son to the Oregon. Yes.
Just baby clothes. But you know,
Oh, yeah.
it'd be fun if she makes it.
Oh. Thanks.
It's way down there. There we go. You ready to roll?
Whatever you are.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're about to begin the special meeting of Morrisville Borough Council. It's August 14th, 2018. If you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence and then our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Virginia, if you could get a roll call, please. That's mine.
Mayor Rivella?
Here.
Councilman Downs?
Here.
Councilwoman Dreisbach?
Here.
Councilman Cronwell?
Here.
Councilman Harrison?
Here.
Councilman May?
Here.
Councilman Sarker?
Here.
Councilman Smith?
Here.
Councilman Day?
Here.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Tonight, before we get into any of the public comment, we have some special presentations on the agenda. So the first one under the presentations would be Triad Associates, and they're going to come to the podium and introduce themselves and speak.
Mike Zampino from Triad Associates.
Thank you very much.
My name is Mike Zampano, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer and founding partner of Triad Associates. And with me is Carolyn Zampano, my daughter, and part of the succession team with the company, I'm happy to say. This year, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary as Triad Associates, and I mention that because in those 40 years, we have seen the evolution of community development, housing, redevelopment, economic development, social service and public facility programs that have been funded by the state and federal government principally, but also through many foundations and other resources at regional agencies in the counties. I also say that because I know from speaking to your manager and our prior work together that there is an interest, I believe, on the part of council and the mayor to pursue grant funding for a variety of programs. And in that context, with the most recent grants that we secured for two of our clients, one a county and one a small borough, we are over $892 million that we have secured for our clients, principally grants, but also financing programs that have enabled municipalities to address that broad spectrum of community, economic, and housing needs for their specific programs. I've had the opportunity to work in Morrisville some 9 years ago. We secured a grant for the borough through the Wells Fargo Regional Foundation for the first ward, and it was really an excellent group of folks who we worked with to put together a strategy that looked at business and residential issues and opportunities. And it was really a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis, but it was much more outcomes that were recommended. And I have a copy of the study that I'll leave with your manager. It was really something the Wells Fargo Foundation was very keenly interested in going to the next step, which could have resulted in grants that range from anywhere from $400,000 to $700,000 to implement the recommendations that were in the study. But just back, if I may, just to get back on what we do and the clients that we work with, large and small boroughs, townships, county and private sector entities, and also with the local authorities, water and sewer authorities, the police, fire, and emergency management groups. We work with them all because they're all integrally related to how good governance and government works. And in this day and age, with the state and federal program budgets shrinking significantly and the slices of the pie becoming thinner because more and more municipalities are looking for ways to supplement your budget and to lessen the tax burden and yet provide all of the proper amenities that are needed, it becomes that much more important to have a firm that understands the state and federal and regional programs, has worked with them and been successful in securing grants. And again, from housing rehab to business district revitalization, street sidewalk, streetscape projects, water and sewer utility projects, parks and recreation, fire stations, fire engines, emergency services vehicles, you name it. And I'm happy to say and proud to say that we've been able to, secure grants to help municipalities address their needs and leverage the dollars that you have by bringing in, as I like to see it, your fair share of those federal and state tax dollars that you invest or contribute to on an annual basis, and really have a sharp eye. I left I have a brochure that I left with you, passed out to everyone, and you're certainly welcome to peruse that. I also just thought it would be interesting to see one of our clients in Pennsylvania, and we work in Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Montgomery County is a client of ours, and then smaller municipalities. And the town where I live in Upper Gwynedd, we've secured over $9.3 million in grants for the town. A couple million of that is in loans, very low interest, long-term loans for sewer infrastructure. But they've ranged from a $27,000 grant for lighting on their new pickleball courts, and then the final analysis, it cost them $5,000 with the $25,000 project. So it was a great return on investment. But improvements to their community center, $60,000. Treatment plant upgrades, $2 million. $71,000 for restrooms at their ball fields. $41,000 also. We had ADA improvements that were needed. So, and on and on. And this was just an example kind of at the local level. And, you know, you may have a question, and I want to respect your time and I want to rush through things, but you may have a question, well, how do we go about having a better understanding of what your needs are? And while there may be some very good thoughts and I think some potential considerations from this study to be more current with things, I find that our investment of time in the community clients that we have, and by the way, I've had the same clients, municipal clients, different mayors and councils and administrators, but the same clients for as long as I've been in business, 40 years, 38 years, 30 years, 28 years, the same clients. And I'd like to think that that's because we've been honest with them in our recommendations, and, you know, been thoughtful about what we're going to recommend in terms of projects and activities. And so one of the approaches that we take, I think has always been very useful, is to have a better understanding of what you perceive as your priorities. You know better than anyone. And what we do is I suggest on our nickel, when we're brought on board, is to develop what I handed out here. We call it a projects and funding matrix. It can take on various forms. But if you look at it, you're going to see various categories: economic development, community development and housing, infrastructure, public safety, recreation, public facilities, transportation, schools, etc. And the idea is we all have our sense of what are our needs and your department heads, but sometimes I find it's very, very useful when you write them down, literally list projects and put some estimate of the cost on those projects. And then think about who potential partners could be, what are those potential funding sources, what kind of timelines do we have, so that when our grants committee that meets every week is looking to identify and recommend to you potential grant sources, it's premised on, you know, having input from you as to what you see those priorities are. And what I like to do, and what I recommend for new clients, is to, again, on our time, not your cost, to meet with you, members of a committee of council, your department heads, administration, and sit down and let's talk about where those priorities are and begin to try to quantify them so that as we take it back to our team, we can be searching for the right resources that make the most sense. And that's a work in progress because it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process of, tracking what's coming out, what new programs are going to be available, what programs are being refunded at various times, and being able to lock in on what we see are very viable resources and, you know, programs that we feel that have a competitive opportunity for the borough as well. So just by way of background, and again, we're $892 million and counting. I don't plan on going anywhere until I hit $1 billion. And that means she's got to live with me, but that's okay. As a practical matter, it's really very challenging. And we truly have been very fortunate to be able to, what drives us is being able to be successful. And by the way, not only do we write the grants, and when we are recommending projects for different federal and state programs or regional programs or county programs, we are also thinking about the practical side of how is it going to be implemented. Because the one thing that we have found in our success in many programs is the ability to receive the grant and to spend the money on time and for the purposes stipulated and in accordance with the guidelines. And we provide very strict compliance on the implementation side as much as is needed in each community. And we work with your engineer and all of your departments when we are working on different projects. So I'll stop talking. I can be available for questions.
Madam President, if I could just provide a little context on
Sure.
how we got here today.
Okay.
In a recent Finance Committee meeting, the topic of grants came up and what our strategy might be next year as far as grants go. And we were asked to reach out to firms, and there aren't a lot out there. And the best one out there is standing before us giving a presentation today. Tremendous success rate, both in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and he's been around a long time, so appreciate you coming tonight, Mike. But you might have some questions from council members tonight.
Happy to.
Anyone like to ask any questions at this time?
Yeah, what would we be looking at for cost? Is it a retainer per year? Is it an hourly figure? How does that work?
Well, what we recommend is what we call a general services contract. It is not a retainer. It is a contract that virtually every one of our municipal clients use it because it gives you the flexibility as to how you use us. There are two components to it, basically. One is an hourly component, and the other is what I call fixed fee. So, for example, and there's a part in there in the very outset, and I left Scott a sample for his review. But basically, there's a first phase, which is, as I said, at no cost, and that's our sitting down and reviewing and getting a sense of what your priorities are. And then our grants committee doing reviews and offering recommendations. There is no cost to the town for that. That's our homework, to bring projects and recommendations to you. The hourly work could be meetings with state, county representatives as we develop projects. A lot of times what I like to do is not always, it depends, but sometimes before we'll write an application, it's better to profile the project and send it to a grantor agency to get a read from them. Is this something they're interested in? So there's some hours involved there. It's really as authorized, but it's managed time. And then if we make a recommendation for a funding source, a grant funding source, what we will do, and we have a letter of authorization, and you may have a different mechanism to do that, but essentially we'll come back and say, look, we found this transportation grant or this recreation grant. We think it's a fit for some of the projects. And by this way, this is an ongoing, constantly being updated matrix, but we found a fit for a particular program. We've reviewed the criteria, and the cost to prepare that application is going to be X dollars. And then you decide whether you want to proceed or not with that particular program. It's not a contingency. I'm asked a lot of times. There's too much work, honestly, that is involved if you're going to prepare a competitive application and do it thoroughly. So it's very rare that we're doing them on a contingency basis. But we have had cases where a project scored well, but because there was so few dollars, we've had to refile it. And we will refile that for minimal, maybe a couple of hours just to update it or comply with the latest guidelines. So to try to answer your question, the contracts are really at the discretion of the municipality, and it is not retainer. It is on a task basis as we come up with recommendations or are performing services.
And you think you'd be comfortable with not only the municipal government, but perhaps the police department if they were interested, the water sewer authority if they were interested, the library?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, they're all part of the dynamic of the community. So I think it's important. And I would say this, sometimes we may find situations where a particular priority that you have is something that is not being funded. And yet we can find a grant for something else. Sometimes it's just a matter of you got to move where the funds are, and maybe you have to use borough funds for this particular activity, but other funds would be available to address another. And yes, we would welcome the input. We've worked with water sewer authorities, as you can see in Upper Gwinnett. There's like $6 million in major improvements that they needed to do to their sewer plant to meet DEP consent requirements, et cetera. So consent order requirements. So that's
have you had any experience with public safety video systems for police departments or anything like that?
Limited.
Limited?
It's extremely difficult. And if I may suggest something, when I say extremely difficult, the funds are very limited.
Okay.
And however, it reminds me of something else. A lot of times your police and fire, emergency management services will have some folks who are pretty good at doing their own grants. And what we suggest is terrific, do it. I don't need to duplicate what you can do. But a lot of times what we have been able to do, because we go to the conferences, we go to the trainings. Yes, that's our business, but we go to see what they're looking for. And what I suggest that we do is, if they'd like, we'll do a review, a thorough review, and offer comments, constructive, to tighten it up, let's say. And maybe there's a couple hours here and there, as opposed to having to write the application. I don't need to do what they're already expert at, but I do know we read the regs. We understand a lot of times what is maybe not so well clearly written that should be in an application. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Eileen.
You had mentioned Morrisville, the first ward 9 years ago. Seemed like a lot longer than that for me, but I remember it. And that was a grant which was not for bricks and mortar.
Correct. That's correct.
Do you do a variety of grants that can be used for bricks and mortar? Some are just for engineering, some are for other projects.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And that particular grant, and that's good to point that out. We do a lot of bricks and mortar, but certain programs like the Wells Fargo Foundation, their whole idea was to take an area that's reasonably sound, and has a strong community component, but needs some guidance as a way to strengthen it and work on. If you were a part of that committee, I apologize not remembering.
It didn't have a good outcome. I mean, through no fault of yours. It was just the way that it was managed.
And that unfortunately did not enable us to go after, because they wanted to fund it. But if they see that there's not cooperation,
there's mismanagement.
But the input was excellent. Really.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of studies, and we develop sometimes we will get a grant to do a strategy that leads to the projects, that leads to the grants, because
that's what we were hoping for.
Pardon?
That's what we were hoping for, but
Exactly.
It just didn't turn out that way.
And that was for various programs and support activities, but that also leads to other grants. And if you look at some of the activities that are in here, I had to refresh my memory. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And sometimes a day is a long time ago for me, but whatever. The fact is that there were a lot of really good recommendations, and some may still have continued relevance today that we could build off of. So strategies can be for the soft side, but we oftentimes will get a grant to do a strategy that sets forth the basis, the arguments that you need to go after some of the bigger grants. So it's a little of both.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And anyone else?
I have another one.
Sure.
I know it's going to be a very difficult answer. Seeing that we don't have your services now, if we were to consider you for next year, what would be your guesstimate on a order of magnitude of what we should budget for services? Would it be $10,000, $50,000, $2 million?
That's a good question. And $1 million is, now you're talking, actually.
$10 million.
I would retire tomorrow if that were the case. But actually, listen, it's your call. But my practical experience is, and my recommendation is this. First of all, we do not work, and you can check with any of our clients, and I don't keep them for 30 and 40 years for any other reason than what I'm about to say to you. We don't work towards the contract amount. We work towards what the services are that will address your needs. Also, and to answer your question, you need to, your finance folks, you need to have a line item so that when there are opportunities, you're not scrambling to try to find the money. And because then it could be too late. These opportunities come up. Sometimes you get a couple months warning. We know what's coming, but not always. And they don't always keep on a consistent schedule. But to try to answer your question, if I had to make a suggestion, I think 10 would be on the low side. A suggestion, put 20 in the budget. because it really depends on what the grants are that are going to be out there. And you know, you can put any amount as long as you know if we're working hard and we're able to be successful in finding what we think are valid, competitive projects for the borough, then maybe you can supplement it. That's your call, but please put a number. We purposely, there's no number in that contract. It's an action that the council can then take. And to your question, it's to make sure that there's a line item in there so that we can work off of that as we are trying to pursue grants.
In addition to that, in preparation for next year, one thing that we can do while we're developing the matrix is sit with the finance department to look at your capital budget.
Oh, yeah.
To see if there are any things that you've allocated that may be fundable, swap them
From a
out for
grant.
things. For example, with surveillance cameras, that they are difficult to get. We could replace a grant-funded project with the cameras. So we can look at those opportunities as well.
Yeah, definitely, that's right. Look at the capital budget for the annual budget.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I thank you very much
Thank you.
for coming out and doing the presentation. We're walking away with a lot more information than we started with, which is great. We'll have a chance to actually look at this real good since we're just getting this tonight, and then we can get back to you at a later time.
Call anytime. I'd be happy to come back. And thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you. Appreciate it. Good seeing you, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Bye.
Okay. The next on our presentation would be Capitol Health EMS presentation.
Jim, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hear me okay?
Sure.
I have a bellowing voice. I'm trying not to get feedback here. My name is Jim Buzan. I am the Divisional Director of Emergency Medical Services at Capitol Health System across the river. I've been there for pretty much my whole life. I started actually as a volunteer in the 70s, and I've been the director of the department for a little over 12 years now. Here tonight, as some of my staff approached me and said that Morrisville was interested in obtaining an EMS service, as the Morrisville Volunteer Squad would be ceasing operations, and I believe it's November the 1st, and that they were looking for services that might be able to provide this. So hoping everyone has the letter. I don't want to read the whole letter to you, so I'll just do an overview if that's okay, and just talk a little bit about why we're here and what we're looking to do. So I'm here as the director of EMS. Mr. Greg Diadamo is here as well. He is our vice president of professional services and helps me actually, you know, he's my boss for emergency medical services and the work that we do in the community. So Capitol Health, as you know, is the combination of Mercer Hospital and Aline Fold Medical Center that merged in approximately 1999-2000 to become one organization. But basically, that service has been around since the 1800s, started in like the late 1800s. This is our community and always has been. We still have many patients from this side of the river that go to that short distance over there. I'm a community-oriented service. I take care of emergency medical services for anyone that's looking for it. And I don't go out trying to get it, but if I hear someone's interested in it and we can help, it's part of our community support, and I go forth as part of my job to offer a service. So our service is very well established. We have been doing this for me for 12 years, but the service actually started in the late 70s. Again, all that information is on the paper I presented to you. I don't want to spend an hour of your time just talking about our history. But the bottom line is we're a very well-established service. We cover from the very basic to the most advanced. We have the first mobile stroke unit in the tri-state region, and that has come under our department, and we actually can take care of a stroke directly in front of someone's house right now and stay there for about 45 minutes until we administer the clot-busting drugs. So we cover everything from standbys where we give out Band-Aids to eradicating stroke. And I could speak about any of that in the middle if you have questions, and I'll give everybody the opportunity to do that. The service that I would offer would be comparable to what you have now. I would make sure it's a rock solid service and I stand behind it. I'm very easy to reach. My phone is on and it's on 24/7, and I take personal responsibility for my department. I have 200 employees and we run approximately 14 vehicles at the same time of all different services. So when I come into a town, and I've done this probably 6 times now in my career, where I've come to a municipality and helped them transition from one service to another. And I say that I help because I offer the information whether I get the service or not. And when I came and met on the 26th and we talked, my statement at that time was true. If I can give you information that would help you make a decision, I'm going to do that. I'm also going to tell you what we could do, and then it's up to you to make the decision for what works best for you. So the service that I would offer would be exactly what you have now. It's an ALS vehicle. It would be a paramedic and an EMT. When we've had the conversations, my intent would be to try and hire all the individuals that work at the service now. They obviously have to go through our screening and hiring process, but I don't see any reason we wouldn't be able to hire the vast majority, and I have done in the past. Every service that we've helped transition, we would still work with the people that were there. That's who you want. You want incumbents that know the town, and then you work really hard to make sure that your staff learn the roads, the ins and outs, make connections with the receiving emergency departments, and I think we're very good at building those bridges. The other thing is there may be volunteers that were still community oriented and they want to ride and they want to help, but they like, oh, well, we're shutting it down. I won't be able to do that. We started a program years ago. When we started this in Lawrence Township, we helped transition them from what had been a volunteer squad that was unable to take any calls. They didn't have paid staff. We were able to absorb the volunteers. People can still ride with us as a volunteer. All we make them do is attend a one-day orientation program to the hospital where they learn all the requirements that the hospital would want them to do with patient confidentiality and bloodborne pathogens and infections. And then they take the same competencies that the other staff do. They would be allowed to be a third on our truck. So we would always have 2 of our staff there. So we could absorb volunteers if they wanted to continue riding. We talked about the finance. We would be able to do this for the current amount that you are paying now, and that's in the letter as well. So we put the contribution from Morrisville, the contribution from Falls, and the use of the building into a bucket and looked at the cost and the projected revenue, and it's close enough to a wash that I received permission to go ahead, and I got the green light from our administration, our legal department, that I could make this presentation. I also understand that it could be something that would have to be done very quickly, and we are prepared to do that. And as I had mentioned before, if you chose to award the contract to us, and there's still a lot of details that you may want to modify a little bit, change, how long, all those kind of things. But I'm prepared to do this on the fly and make this work for whatever the borough would want us to do. I don't think that I want to go into any more because I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask questions. I hope that I put everything you would want to know in the proposal letter. The contract would reflect pretty much what's in there, and there may be fine details as we discover that, there's football games that had to be covered, and we make sure we put that in the contract so everybody knows what would happen. And I guess at this point, I'm ready to answer any questions that you may have.
Excuse me, Madam President, if I may. Jim, could you just speak to the fact that you're proposing to do this on a 24/7, 365 basis?
Exactly right. It would take over from the moment we started, round the clock, rock solid, dependable. My office is right at Prospect and Bellevue Avenue, so my drive here is the shortest I've ever been to any potential alternate site. It took me a whopping 3 or 4 minutes to get across the Calhoun Street Bridge and come into the office. So at that building, I have 14 backup vehicles. My administration is there. We're what's left from where the Mercer Hospital was. We're right across the street at the Family Health Center. I have a supervisor that is on 24/7. That would be a fly supervisor that supports our field operations, can deliver supplies. The crews don't have to drive around to get things. We take care of that. So we're very close proximity. This is a very easy system to support and provide all the needs that, would be, provide all the services that would be necessary to make the service work. We'd be able to send backup trucks. So if we had a truck that was tied up on a fire, and, they're locked in, they can't, go take 911 calls, we would be able to send a backup truck over to support that. I have my administrative staff there that are in uniform so that when events like that happen, I can mobilize a backup truck in a very short order.
And I know when we initially met, we were originally targeting October 1st. October 1st, November 1st, and then subsequent meetings, we've kind of started talking about dates in September.
Correct.
Perhaps the 23rd. And you indicated to us that you'd have no issue with the sense of urgency.
That is correct. We would be able to pull it off.
Okay. And maybe you could explain to council while you have the mic how I know you mentioned you've got supervisory staff and one of them would be committed to the operation here.
Correct.
How
because
that would work.
It's a new service. I would commit someone to working this as their full-time role, where they would basically be responsible to make sure that we take over the service in a way that meets or exceeds everything that was being done. So when I've done this in the past, I actually mentioned I would like the staff to be here before the start date, driving around, going to the stations, meeting the staff in the emergency departments, talking to communications, meeting with police, fire, and the other support services that we'll deal with. I would start them kind of as soon as we had the green light to go. I would start the visitation, if you would, as soon as possible thereafter. The only thing that I would have any issue with is we have to get the background checks done. And I've talked with HR, literally, if I get a green light at X date, the next day I would propose to come in, try and talk to as many individuals as we could, get the paperwork to everybody so that they could fill out the application. There would be somebody from HR that would come with me, talk about benefits so that people understand what they're doing. I understand that our benefits would be better. And the pay would be good for the staff. So I'd like to believe that they would kind of like this idea and not see it as oh boy, this is going to be bad for me. From what I've heard, I believe that we will be able to offer them a package that they would enjoy and that we would just have to do it as quick as we can. HR told me it would take approximately 3 weeks to get the background checks done. So they are done in their primary job now in Pennsylvania, but the hospital still just requires it on hire. So I need about 3 weeks to make sure I get that done. Everything else, they pretty much assured me they should be able to get done. Worst case scenario was if it took an extra day or two, I certainly have the staff that would be able to provide it. And if some people got done and some didn't, we could make it work.
Madam President, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you for coming out.
Certainly.
I appreciate your proposal. Your proposal was a lot different than the others we looked at. Whether others were in need of a startup cost or specific equipment and supplies, it's refreshing that Capital Health is interested in taking this on without those items. I do have a question for you, though.
Please.
Knowing the economy of the ambulance squads right now, what type of resources does Capital Health have to ensure that it will be ongoingly successful financially?
Excellent question. We are the hospital.
Okay.
I am a department of the hospital. So I am a department of two major institutions that are doing very well right now. We are in a very stable environment. I have a very strong commitment from my administration to provide EMS. There's no secret. This is good publicity and marketing on behalf of the institution. So that is a positive. We're very well established. We've been here for years. I have very good depth of equipment, personnel. There's no reason to believe we're kind of shaky come and go. The hospital is doing well, and they absolutely appreciate the work that we do. They recognize us. The staff are frequently mentioned in hospital activities. So from my personal belief, I'm very secure in where I am.
Excellent.
I make sure I do my job every day, but I believe that the hospital absolutely has my back, and they've done nothing but supported me for 12 years as a director, and that's longer than anybody's ever had it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from council?
I have a few. Thanks for coming out.
My pleasure.
Has Capital Health ever operated in Pennsylvania?
So it's a trick question. Have we ever operated in Pennsylvania? Yes. Have we run 911 in Pennsylvania? No.
Okay.
So Capital Health started a large neuroscience institute where we basically were taking care of strokes, as we are the regional comprehensive stroke center for a very large area. The next comprehensive stroke center is Abington, and above that is Lehigh Valley. And if you want to have an hour's worth of education, I'd be glad to give it to you about why we're the best place to take care of a stroke. But what they do at Capital Health is they actually can go remove the clot, unlike almost any other hospital. So they give TPA, which is a clot buster drug, which breaks up the clot, and it works pretty well when it's a little stroke, and it works 8% of the time when it's what's called a large vessel occlusion. We have specialized surgeons at Capital Health that are capable of doing this 24/7, and I run the transfer center and the phone lines and deal with this all night, every night, but sound like I'm whining because I am. So they bring patients in from everywhere to do this work, and they take a catheter into the groin, they go deep into the brain, they physically put a spring or a coil on the clot, they remove the clot from the brain, nobody can pass out now, but you take that stroke that was very debilitating, and we had a 58-year-old woman we took care of last week. Doesn't happen every day. Catastrophic stroke. She was at a wedding. She went to a local emergency department, had some difficulty speaking, then she had more difficulty speaking, lost the movement on her right side, got to the point where she couldn't speak at all. They had given her TPA, which is the clot buster drug. It didn't do anything. They called us and said, "Can you help?" We sent an ambulance. We picked the patient up, brought the patient back to Capital Health, rushed her to what's called the CNI suite, which is where they do this special procedure, kind of 20th century space room, 21st century space room, big C-arms, and they look at a biplane where they could look at the brain real time. They sent a catheter up. They removed the clot. 2 days later, she walked home.
Wow.
So to answer your question, which I really digressed from, we have been picking up patients in Pennsylvania, and to do that, we had to be licensed. So we obtained a license from the Pennsylvania Department of Health for our EMS service to pick patients up. And that was for several years, we used that. And then what's happened is the number of transfers had dropped off, and we actually lost our medical director. So we were trying to get a new medical director for a couple of months. We have that now. We reestablished. All the paperwork is in for us to be licensed. And the one goal that I had to be able to tell you that I had a license on the truck could not get done until tomorrow morning when they come and inspect our trucks. But we have had the license. We have worked in Pennsylvania before.
Okay.
And many of my staff work here now. One of my supervisors is on Morrisville. So I believe that technically the department hasn't run 911 here, but I believe the resources have, if you will.
Okay. Now, you're going to be using our squads building?
Yes.
Okay. Are you going to be responsible for any of the expenses, the maintenance of that building?
That's exactly what I would draft in the contract, that we would take care of all routine maintenance. We would take care of utilities. And again, that could be tweaked. You could tell me how you want that to work. Obviously, we would do the cable, those kind of things, communications. So I think that that's just something that has to be made comfortable for the town to look at and say, okay, this is what we're happy with. This is too much. And then you negotiate that if you need to move it a little bit. But it is our intention to take care of the building.
Just to be clear, I think our discussion was that we would keep the arrangement consistent to the way it is now. And that is, we would do grass and snow. Of course, in an emergency, you might have to have a
we
plan B.
We actually have a plow that goes from
snow.
station to station because we don't want to count on an area. So we actually have a truck outfitted because I have stations all around. I have stations in Princeton, East Windsor, Hamilton Township.
And we would continue to provide them with trash collection.
Will you be taking any of our patients to the Capital Health healthcare system?
Great question. Very fair. We take the patients where they want to go and where their relationship is. So as much as I work for what's called Capital Health, I could assure you I work for the University Hospital at Princeton. They made that name really long now. Used to be Princeton Hospital. I work for Robert Wood Hamilton. Used to be Hamilton Hospital. I work for St. Francis. I work for Hunterdon. I'll work for Bucks. I'll work for St. Mary's. And that's how my work is. We have to take care of the patient and take them where they need to go. So I have a policy that describes that very clear so that the staff know you're supposed to take the patient where they want to go. There are exceptions based on a patient's clinical presentation. Sure. Somebody having a baby doesn't get to go to a hospital that's not delivering babies. Even when they tell us that's where they want to go, we're going to do our best to convince them not.
Patients that are coded. Obviously.
Closest, coded goes to closest, trauma goes to trauma center. Primary stroke center, I believe everybody is certified as. So, if it's a routine stroke, it goes to the primary stroke center. There's a few other exceptions that are in New Jersey law and are recommended. But the ultimate thing is if a patient says, I'm not going unless you take me here, we don't get to duct take them and, take them. So we have to kind of meet the patient's needs. And I think we're very skilled at saying, sir, I really need you to understand if I take you there, you could die because they don't know how to take care of this and you'll be at great risk. And I think we could talk them and their family into going where they need to go. But I don't take people where they don't want to go. And that's because I take the complaints and I don't want the complaints.
So you'll give our residents choice then?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And they said the majority of the patients that you have here go to St. Mary's, and that's going to be where they go. I wouldn't see that changing. And if they want to go to the Trenton hospitals, I have no problem. It's very close. We'll be back here within a few minutes. But the town has the right to say, here's how far you can go, and we don't want to go any further than that. So if a patient says, I want to go to Abington, Princeton, the town may be like, nah, that's too far. We're going to have the ambulance out of service too long, and we make that our protocol, if you will. I don't put it in the contract. I think that those kind of things, there's sometimes a case-by-case basis where there's a profound reason to go somewhere. But you're trying to make the patient's needs, not ours or theirs.
So I'm guessing you also have to develop a mutual aid agreement with the other services in the area. Is that correct?
So they probably exist. We would just assume what they had, and we'd make sure that we have the contact with those agencies. We would support them just as I would expect them to support Morrisville.
Okay.
So if, they call us, they're desperate for help in Levittown, we're going to go. And vice versa, because they support each other. I've done these contracts where they say, we want you to send another ambulance from your base. Why would you want to do that? You're going to take longer. You want the next closest vehicle, and you want the dispatch center to make those decisions, not me or not some supervisor who's in an office and doesn't have situational awareness. So I would much rather follow the mutual aid plan that's in place and continue to use that.
So if you're out on a call and Morrisville were to experience another call, because you're providing one ambulance, I believe?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. That would fall under mutual aid?
Yes.
Okay. We have another proposal on the table that's willing to move another ambulance down in closer.
We could, and that's what I mentioned earlier, like if there were a fire standby or things like that, we would have no problem sending another truck. But the issue is, if you can do the shell game where you move trucks around, that's great, and I don't have a problem with that. But there's a reason that I'm interested in doing this service. I start EMTs from the very beginning. This is called the 911 service, and let's not kid each other. It's desirable when you're a young EMT and you're trying to learn how to do 911. This gives them a career ladder that they could climb up and they can learn. So what it does is it lets me use my second truck to back up the first one. So I'm not going to commit to doing that. I do it when they're available, when they're not on calls. But it puts a second truck close by where if there is another assignment, you have an experienced individual who's the preceptor working with a newer EMT. That newer EMT can have exposure to 911 calls when we do that. And it's learning. It allows that progression of skills. So I can't tell you I have another truck sitting, a few miles away, but I think I'm about the closest, but I wouldn't want a chance not having a unit right away. And if we have a radio one, we have a truck available, I would jump right on it. Offer it to Bucks, say we're available, can we take that assignment? But I want dispatch coordinating it.
Will you be needing any of our ambulances or the...
We're interested in the purchase of them.
Purchase of them?
Yes.
As well as the CPR devices, two-way radios? You would be picking up the leases on those as well?
That. So the CPR devices, what they told me, the two Lucas devices that they have, one is on a lease and the other one is from a grant that was given from Bucks County, is what I believe.
Right.
So that might be them making the decision about reassigning it to the unit, and I'll work with them with whatever is necessary. So I don't know that that was in the purchase, but everything else was on the table as they were going to get me a price for the combined purchase for both vehicles and the equipment.
Okay.
I've not received that yet, but that would have to be something I'd have to get approved, and if not, we have the equipment to do it.
Do you have any similarly sized communities that you're serving right now? I mean, we're doing about 1,000 calls per month Per year, rather?
Yes.
Yeah, per year?
Yeah, right now I have Robbinsville and Hightstown.
Okay.
So I provide that service. I provided it to East Windsor, to Lawrence,
Hamilton.
Right. Well, no, not Hamilton. Hamilton was my previous job, actually. Hamilton was when I worked, not my previous job, but I worked for several years at Robert Wood, New Brunswick. And what happened was the town of Hamilton had all municipal employees and they wanted to shut it down. So they went to Robert Wood Johnson Hospital, who didn't have EMS. I was working at Robert Wood Johnson, New Brunswick full time. I was still here per diem as a provider. And that was the first time we actually did this assimilation, if you will, of taking over the employees and starting the service under Robert Wood in New Brunswick at that time.
What percentage in those communities of those patients that you respond to end up in the Capital Healthcare system?
It's all a matter of how far away they are and where they want to go. So the closer you are to those hospitals, the more go there. But right now in Robbinsville, I would probably say 80-85% go to Robert Wood Hamilton. And then the remaining 20%, 15-20%, probably St. Francis, Hopewell, and Regional.
The reason I ask is the closest hospital happens to be Helene Fold, and it's 3.6, 3.7 miles from here. Is that where you would be?
It's all
That's a Capital Health. It's a Capital Health hospital. That's why I asked.
It's very rare that you get to take the patient where you want to go. So the patient has to, one, not be able to talk, two, not have a family member that could talk, and they're just somebody that you find on the street at Delmore Avenue.
Right.
And we know nothing. So if you ask me at that point where the patient might go and it was, you know, a significant difference, then they might go to Fold. But that's going to be one out of, honestly, probably 100. It just doesn't happen that often.
Okay,
you know,
fair enough.
most of the time you're in a house, there's family, there's history, there's any of those things that would dictate where the patient should go. But otherwise, it is closest, and that's what the crew would be expected to follow.
Okay, and I think you already touched on this. You're going to be hiring all of our current
That's my hope to
personnel
hire them all,
if you're.
As long as they can make the cut, then they're in, yes.
Okay.
And the cut is just background checks. You know, I can't control any of that. We have 90 days, and this is exactly what I said to Mr. Mitchell. When they start, we have 90 days. I expect that they're all going to be good. I think inherently people are good, and you give them the opportunity to shine. You know, if somebody just, you know, can't make it or has a problem, then, you know, you try and work with them. And if you can't within 90 days, then, you know, you part ways. But you certainly give them the opportunity to do it.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for coming out this evening, and not only for addressing us, but I want to thank Capital Health for stepping up with this proposal. I guess a week or two ago, Chief McClay had enlightened me that it looked very good, so I thought that was great news for Morrisville, and I reached out to Chief Eckert from our squad, and as well as Evan from Newtown. So I'm not going to go over all those questions that I asked them, but one thing that I would like you to reassure our residents is that because of the close proximity, there's going to be concern with, but you're going to run, if council goes this direction, the Morrisville squad here. So you're going to be, as me and the chief were calling it, the Morrisville bubble. I don't want them to
exactly
think.
the word I used.
Yeah, see, I told you. It was right after your meeting.
That's right.
So you're going to be focused on the Morrisville bubble, if you will, and they don't have to worry that this is just a substation for Capital Health.
That's correct.
And I just want to reassure people
That's
that you're
correct.
going to be dedicated, obviously, with mutual aid. If you have to go to Yardley or Falls, you would.
So here's an example that'll prove that. They don't need to be certified to work in New Jersey. So the individuals that I hire to work here can be strictly certified in Pennsylvania. That means they can't even cross the river unless they're called for mutual aid, which Morrisville has happened 2 or 3 times a year.
It's
right
rare.
now. Rare. So it's not my intention to try and blend the services at all. If there came a time later on that I could add to things, like we became close with Bucks and they want me to put another ambulance on to help them with transports, and it could help serve 2 masters and help with some of the 911 service and yet go over to Fold, but it doesn't hurt the bubble, I would have no problem with that kind of expansion. But it is not my intention to move this truck from here at all. You have to believe we're taking good care of you or you're gone. That's how it works.
Well, I know they felt that and they believed you because they all spoke very highly of your presentation. And it started with, I wanted to be reassured that you're going to put paramedics as as well as EMTs on
Yes,
the
sir.
truck. And that just led us into a very lengthy conversation of them reassuring me about all those things. But I wanted to bring up the Morrisville bubble because I didn't hear it here tonight.
No,
So thank
you're
you,
right.
Jim.
And I think it was very important, and I wished I had said it. But it's okay. You get on my thunder. But that was something that I recognize we need to do. We need to make sure that you're comfortable with the service. And I've done it before. I can give you all the references you want. You can call Janice Mironoff. You can call Mayor Freed in Robbinsville. You can talk to them, and you're going to find that it's the same thing. I deliver with what I'm saying. There's times things are going to go wrong. There's times you're going to get a complaint. The issue is I'll take them. I'll handle them. I'll make sure that people are satisfied. And if something goes wrong, we do the best we can to recover as quick as we can. It will not be perfect.
Is there anyone else tonight?
One quick question. I actually work in Jersey City for the Jersey City Medical Center.
Okay.
As far as staffing, if somebody were to call out, if somebody would call out 2 hours before their shift,
Yes,
which
sir.
is the norm, how quickly would you be able to move somebody into that position?
All my supervisors will have to be cross-trained in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So immediately, that's the first person that I go to. And our intention is to have depth. So we have to make sure that we have more than just 2 people that are certified. So we've been working on getting people certified before this happened because we are doing the license. But my goal would be to have people on every shift that are certified to work over here.
Okay.
And I think if you were working the city of Trenton on a paramedic truck, taking the 22 calls that are going to happen that night, and I asked you to come work Morrisville for the shift for the same money, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. Yeah, I'm
Just a
sure they will
guess.
be.
Just being honest, that's all.
And,
They'll be
just,
okay.
A logistics question. Say
Yes, sir.
we were to move for you to come in for September, but you weren't able to reach an agreement with the Morrisville Ambulance Squad for their radios and equipment, or your trucks, or your mobiles and portables set up to work with Bucks.
Yeah, we have to have Bucks program them because that's a requirement from them, but we have them. We actually purchased the radios. I watched boxes pass me today.
Okay.
We just actually purchased 2 new vans that were literally licensed in New Jersey on Friday that are brand new, and I'd easily be able to dedicate one of those for over here. I didn't have them until Friday.
Okay.
So I have that, and I have at least that as a backup. And it's ready to go. So the only thing that happens is we need a little bit of time for signage and making sure we're compliant with Pennsylvania regulations for how the trucks have to be labeled. And we're going to make sure that we do whatever they need us to do.
Okay. And on a medic question, what life packs are you using?
15.
Okay.
We have a very comprehensive center with the LifePack 15s. We have the modem inside of them so we can transmit the 12 leads right away. And we have a really good program with that with the LifeNet. I think that's the right term.
What is the overall run call for your system, for your EMS system?
ALS, BLS, it was like all the
Combined.
different things.
Well,
So-
if you have any idea.
I mean, ALS, we're doing about 26 calls a day.
Okay.
BLS in Robbinsville, it's a smaller unit. It's probably doing about 3 to 4 assignments a day. So if you think about your 1,000, that's very comparable to what you're doing here, about 3 a day. So that's the BLS 911. The transport trucks are probably running probably 7-8 trips a day, and they do backup. They do coverage of events. We cover the Trenton Thunder games. So you know how that works from Jersey City. You have multiple things cover.
Yeah.
I love the Shell game. Finance hates me, but I have this cover that all the time so that I don't fail to meet the needs. But if you want to have a very linear budget that just this, and I move people all the time, I kill them.
Okay.
Or they want to kill me.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Do you have it? No, I guess that answers everything.
My business card is here. There certainly could be questions that come up. We'll be able to answer any questions that you want. And if you need me back, all you have to do is say the word and I'll be here.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Buzan. We
Thank you.
really appreciate you coming out with the presentation.
Okay.
And
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Appreciate it.
All right. We good, sir? Okay. Thank you.
You had a minute to get.
Take a recess.
You want one? Oh, Madam President, we have a suggestion for a recess since some of our council members have fled.
Oh.
Maybe 2 minutes.
We'd like to have a recess for 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. Time to set up for our next presentation, too. Thank you.
We wish we could. We've got kindling if we want to do a bonfire.
Public session. You can't control us. Put your budget 20 years from now.
Yeah. Who, me and him? Oh.
By the way, this is good. This is. I can't believe.
You're talking about linguine without me?
I'm just.
You know I love linguine.
My favorite. This presentation. It's got 1 or 2 shared services, and like maybe it'll give us like maybe it'll do us a favor and take us. This guy's like I kept reading it. I kept saying, I call him up. I mean, what's the catch?
Mm-hmm.
It's great, and the presentation was even better than the paper. It was fantastic.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, we can't start without you, so I mean.
Hello.
Hey, Randy. How are you doing?
I wouldn't know.
Years to go.
You know what all this, right? He was 15 years older than you. So,
I thought it was 80, so it didn't have 81 in January.
Okay. You want us to hand them out, or?
Contextualize.
Is that the summary of this?
Yes.
No, this is the MMA's pointed response to what we're presenting. So we'll, do we have enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Yeah.
The question I saw was this should be for all events, not.
Yeah, they only threw in there what Morrisville Ambulance told them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're willing to do as many or as little as we want them for. So.
This should be for everybody.
Yeah.
Not just for the.
this is the future.
My filters.
Filter spot. Oh. So is the claw coming out? Okay.
Pennsylvania will never happen.
It is freezing in this place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Turn the air
Pretty much every.
up a little bit. Just a little bit.
It's all or nothing.
You know, I'm getting cold in the nose.
We're gonna budget for it to install a kill switch on the AC. Maybe underneath, so her feet can be warm. Mm-hmm.
I got a ceramic heater somewhere. If I have an oven, you can plug it in. It'll be good.
How many years have you been on this? You don't know this by now? You want my jacket?
I brought a sweater, but
You want my
it's too cold.
You want my jacket?
No,
But if you don't turn this on, it starts so hot here, you can't breathe.
I believe it. Shut off at some point.
Well, we turned it on at what time? Like 3? I thought it would go off after 4 hours, but it hasn't. Has it? Has it?
Oh, wait. Never mind.
Mm-hmm. You got to do a shout out for your mom because she wants to see you on TV. Okay.
Very quickly, I hate being on top.
Oh, I know. I don't mind. Everything I say is noteworthy, so. I have no fear for the hot mic.
Do you see it? Where?
Right there.
Where?
He doesn't know what to make of me yet.
Oh, okay, so I'm on the screen.
Can you go to the red one?
Oh, there it is.
They were talking about linguine.
Make sure you'll be able to see it.
There we go.
Who was he
Thanks.
talking to?
The mayor.
Oh.
They need to be quiet.
You're getting the absolute cardiac check.
Well, yeah, but they're going to take anybody who wants to, of the career staff.
But that's the now.
Full-time and part-time.
It's a good presentation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So you know, as far as what you talked about with the volunteer thing, that's how even Jersey City, a city of that size, still has a volunteer program. It's kind of separate. They're a separate organization that works with the department and the hospital.
Yeah.
So
I think they're down to like 7, but if they want to stay active.
I was one of them, but I'm not active. Yeah, I'm too busy up where I'm at.
So you got a hell of a commute.
I gotta come up your way next week.
Do you? Where? In the city?
I'll bet you somebody knows all the good lunch
And Union.
spots.
Union?
Jersey City and Union. I gotta go to 7315 Boulevard East and 514th Street.
But yes, they're very interested in keeping the volunteer situation going. Plus, he didn't mention it tonight. I wish he had. They offered to make their training center available not only to the ambulance squad, but also to the fire company and the police department if they wish to take advantage of it for free. That's part of the agreement.
They're going to treat the staff over here as like they treat the staff in Jersey. They're going to be in service on a regular basis like the rest of their staff.
Yep, exact same protocol, and in fact, even the part-timers are eligible for benefits if they do something like, I think he said 24 hours a month. As long as they do 24 hours a month, they're eligible part-time for benefits. Yeah. So they'll be Capital Health employees. Did you get more? Okay. Did you revise this based on our revisions today, or?
Then I got it 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I put it in the correct context when I give it out to the council. Oh, I know. I don't care. Oh, yeah, you can't have that yet. I'm going to give it out to, well, I was waiting for him to bring 2 more because he was short. Okay. Okay. So you don't want to give one to the mayor?
He can have it.
Okay. Oh, okay. I don't know if she has hers up here.
Did you get that?
I have it.
Oh, okay.
Could everybody get in your seats, please? We're about to begin.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. May I
Yeah. Yes.
comment first?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're about to begin our meeting. Thank you for your patience. The manager would like to speak first.
If I may, I'd like to add some preliminary context to what we're doing here tonight, because I've already been flooded with hate mail over this issue. Let me tell you first what this is not, and then I'll tell you what this is. This is not a financial analysis of the MMA. We are not going to get into what the financial condition is of the MMA. It's not the intent of this exercise. The intent of this exercise is to address questions you have all had for me and us about the role and relationship between the MMA and the borough government, particularly as it pertains to the Public Works Department. That is the focus of tonight's presentation, and we'll attempt to answer any questions you have. But I want us to stay on track with and be clear about what this is and what this isn't. And at the conclusion of the presentation, we already have a rebuttal presentation from the MMA pointing out many of our shortcomings, some of which have already been revised in what you're about to see and hear in the document in front of you tonight. But John Warenda is here. Thanks, John, for coming. Appreciate it. He can add context at the end of the presentation, anything MMA specific that you might wish to bring up. Now, that said, if council has the types of questions or concerns about the things that I said that are not part of what we're talking about tonight, you're welcome to invite the executive director of the MMA or a representative of the MMA board to come and speak to those issues. It just will not be us speaking to those issues here tonight. Okay?
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Again, as Scott said, this is
For the record, this is Micah, our finance director.
Sorry, I don't have an address in Morrisville, but no, just kidding. Again, this is a high-level, top-level view, just to go over a brief summary of the financial analysis of the shared service agreement between the borough and the MMA. The purpose of this report is to document the financial analysis conducted to study the shared services agreement between the borough and the MMA to present facts, context to the policymakers. This report and analysis was undertaken at the request of the borough manager based on public available financial documents. To our knowledge, no such analysis has ever been done between the relationship of these two public entities. The report accompanying this presentation is intended to inform policymakers about the complex business relationships that exist and has been mutually beneficial for both parties and entities. It is difficult to draw a distinction between these two separate public entities because the lines between them are blurred. Both entities, while legally separate, are highly intertwined. The public perception is that there is no distinction between the two, but there is. Here are some basic facts. On the next sheet, you'll see a quick snapshot of the MMA financials. Again, top-level view. Next page, you'll see...
Actually, before we leave that page, can I just clarify that NOI, net ordinary income, the numbers you're seeing for 17 and 18, would not necessarily reflect debt service payments that the MMA makes on its total debt, which you see at the bottom of the page there.
Okay. The shared service agreement lacks any established provision for annual cost escalations, despite the fact the associated costs increase each year. The table below lists a 10-year payment history with a 3% escalation cost. The next page shows the table below where we would be at 2018 if there was a 3, a 4, and a 5% escalation over the same 10-year period. At this time, I'll turn the mic over to John.
How you doing? John Lader, Superintendent of Public Works Department. I guess the Public Works Department's done work for the Morrisville Municipal Authority at borough cost without a premium. 2017, Public Works spent $213,000 in labor and expenses on MMA projects. In 2018, we were projecting that figure at $219,000 plus or minus. If the MMA insourced this work, we believe the cost would be greater in utilizing the Public Works Department. If the MMA outsourced the same work, we also believe that it could be approximately three to five times that cost. Now, most of the Public Works Department is done for the MMA on an emergency basis without premium. We estimate that 25 to 30% of our work is done outside the borough limits, yet within the MMA's wider service territory.
And just to clarify, that is stipulated in our contract with the MMA that we provide the service to their full service territory, not just within borough limits.
Correct.
Yep. Just some of the jobs that I want to highlight are up on the screen here. Just some of the type of repairs, the hydrants, valve replacement and repairs, water meter replacement and repairs, and sewer line maintenance and manhole repairs, or just some of the highlighted jobs that the public work does.
Actually, while we're on this page, if I could just point out for council's clarification, if you're looking at the page that says spending of the MMA allocation at the top, and it shows fiscal year 17, fiscal year 16, and you all would know better than us, but fiscal year 16, I believe, is the year budget was overspent by a considerable amount, and 17 was the year that the annual allocation was increased to the amount it is now, which is the 650,000.
Now, in this presentation, if you look up, these are some of the repairs that the Public Works did for us. And we just to list a few to get a basis. There are 4 jobs up there with the costs on there. It's not in the packets here. It was more for the presentation, which will support the next graph and the next page. So this is in blue is basically those 4 jobs costed out and what they could be if it was 3 or 4 or 5 times more. And this is just to illustrate where we're at with the Public Works. Now going back to the pamphlet that I handed out, if you look at the actual Public Works 2018 budget, it shows the breakout of where everything's going for the Public Works Department.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry if I could interrupt yet again, but I frequently get asked by council members about what is the budget for the Public Works Department. Well, it's important to keep in mind the Public Works Department does not have a dedicated single departmental budget. The Public Works Department's functions are funded from a variety of sources. If you're looking at the page where it says Public Works Department at the top and has the multicolored pie chart, you're seeing the various funds from within the budget that pay for the operations of the Public Works Department.
Yes, and then percents are next to it as well. So this brings me to the next page, the broad-based general conclusions. The first one is the borough lacks sufficient financial reserves. To properly capitalize the municipal government, a constant and disciplined savings program will be provided protection for adequate cash flows, unanticipated expenses, and emergency situations. This will be built into the 2019 budget that we will present. The borough government is overly reliant on funding from the MMA. This resource could be reduced or extinguished. 3, the MMA enjoys certain cost savings by piggybacking the services through the borough government. An increase in the annual allocation is in order, and provisions for an annual cost escalation would be appropriate. And finally, 4, as a percentage of tax revenue, the borough spends too much money on police services. It's 91% or $1.96 million. The table listed on the next sheet, you can see that how it's spread out. The police service is usually the largest expense in any municipal budget. However, 91% of the tax revenue is simply too much. Either tax revenue must be introduced or services must be cut in order to rebalance the funding allocations. Attached to this, there's 5 exhibits. They're listed there. And at this time, this concludes the presentation. If there's any questions, anything follow-up.
I think once they have more time to digest it, since they're just getting it tonight, we will probably have more questions to entertain. But certainly, Madam President, if there are any.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has anything at this time to ask. Some of the things for myself anyway, I believe are things we've all wondered and anticipated some answers for. I don't know that there's ever been, like you said, an analysis actually done on whether there was never an escalating cost, correct, on any previous budgets?
No, I believe it's been visited from time to time over the years between the two entities. Mm-hmm. The timing for, how an escalation was agreed upon, I don't know the rhyme or reason behind it. I don't think we can explain that other than add some historical context, which John Warenda might be able to offer.
Okay.
For you and pass it, but Randy doesn't get one.
Oh, he doesn't get one?
Randy. We don't have enough.
All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah, he does.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
I heard my name mentioned.
John got him another one, so.
Did you want to weigh in?
Sure.
I'm sure.
Actually, primarily, I'd be willing to answer any questions that might come up right now regarding this issue. I would really only take issue with one thing at the moment. The memorandum that I have shared with you, and you haven't seen either the financial analysis or that memorandum yet, so after you do.
For this year, John, you mean? This year coming up, you mean you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the documents that you actually have before you tonight.
All right.
It's really not a rebuttal of what of the financial analysis, as much as I would like to think of it as a supplement. I mean, I met with Scott and Micah Thursday afternoon. It's the first time I saw the financial analysis that was prepared by the finance director. So I didn't really have a lot of time to weigh in, but I did want to make certain that some things were covered that I thought maybe Micah not really having a lot of background or experience with the MMA wouldn't necessarily know about. So some of the additional documents, some of the information provided in that 5-page memorandum, I think helps to better contextualize the relationship between the MMA and the borough.
Okay.
The document that you got tonight, the financial analysis, did add and update some figures, but I don't think it's so much different that the memorandum I prepared is really stale. So I would ask you to please take a look at that as well.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to answer any questions, if you have any.
All right.
Overall, the relationship, I think, is good. Like any family at Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah,
the knives get sharpened once in a while. We're at each other's throats. But for the most part, I think it works for both of us.
I've had nothing but wonderful days working for the MMA and in this building. Some of you know better than others used to say, I've never had a bad day. Eileen knows who I'm talking about. So thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I'm sure as the council reads into these, your questions, then you can forward to the administration or to John, and I'm sure they'll be answered for you. This is just a lot to be reading tonight. But I thank you. Thank you, Micah, for your work on that. Appreciate that. Okay, finally, we're going to move on to public comment. And this poor woman's probably saying, finally. That would be Natalie Holmes, if you want to come to the podium. I hate to say we limit it to 3 minutes after you've sat through all this, but this is our work session, so as quickly as possible, please.
Yes. Thank you so much. So my name's Natalie Holmes, and this is Meredith Barrell. We're here on behalf of Holy Trinity today.
Okay. Can you state your address also, because it's only for the record?
Absolutely. I live in Yardley, so I'm 718 Chestnut Lane, Yardley, 19067.
Okay. And
I live at 419 Hillcrest Avenue in Morrisville.
All right, thank you.
So first, we want to thank you all for your time and dedication to the council. We appreciate it. And we're actually here to request a roadblock on Stockham Ave outside of Holy Trinity. So just to give you a little bit of background, my children go to Holy Trinity School. They're active members in the community, including a lot of sports teams. And last year for Holy Trinity, we had what we called a food truck frenzy. So we only invited the school And we got a lot of feedback from the community. So it was just school members, some parishioners. A lot of the neighbors that didn't necessarily attend the school or not active parishioners wanted to be informed about the food truck event. They said they would have participated in it. So this year we wanted to expand it, and last year we had 2 trucks. This year we'll have 5 trucks participate in the event, and we want to include the community. So our intent here is to create a more inclusive environment, not just with our school and our parishioners, but also with the community. So we have a lot of parishioners, school members. They're not necessarily local Morrisville residents. So we feel like it's a great opportunity to expand these folks to the Morrisville environment, right? So the borough, to see what we have to offer here. So the one thing, last year we had about 200 participants. We're expecting nearly double that this year.
Wow.
So we want to ensure the safety of not only the children, but our elderly and just all the people that will be attending this event. So our request is to block off the road on Stockham Avenue on the corner, parallel to Holy Trinity, from, I think its address is 207 to 224, which should be written in that letter.
It says 205.
Sorry, so 205.
That's okay.
I didn't memorize that one.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
We just wanted to make sure. So our plan is to put the food trucks right on Stockham. Osborne would still be available for through traffic to go through. But this way, while people are getting their food, they're not disrupted by people driving down Stockham Avenue and creating a hazard for the people that are attending the event.
Okay. I know we have times where people will petition for like a block party. And I don't know the whole procedure for that, but I think they apply to the borough for it. Of course, the police department would be aware of that also. Yep. The mayor may be able to weigh in on that a little bit more on how it's actually done. But I know that you can set up for a time frame like you have here from
4:30.
That's quite a few people. That's more than just like a block party with just a few neighbors.
Yeah, so we'll be using the school yard for the people to sit in, and this is more just while they're getting food from the food trucks. We want to make sure we block it off. And we did communicate with the police, and they did give approval pending council's approval. Okay. So they are aware of it.
Oh, so they're aware of it.
Yep, so this was the next step in the process.
Okay. So last year was it blocked off for you for a while?
It was not.
It was not.
So, it,
But I believe last year you were restricted to the school property, right?
we were still on the school property, so the trucks were aligned on the side of the school on Stockham. So there were actually three, and then we had 2 carts inside and a cupcake. So this year, since we have a little bit more participation from food trucks, we wanted to line them, parallel to each other on Stockham.
Yes.
Across from the school.
Right. That's what's necessitating the road closure.
That's it.
So council knows, and so you know as well, a copy of their correspondence was in your folders tonight.
Yeah, we just
and a copy was shared with the police department, the public works department, and the MMA, so they're aware of the road closure should you choose to approve it. This is the second year for this event. It would probably make sense for us to get a certificate of insurance from Holy Trinity School as part of the road closure, but other than that.
Because the volume of the people that you'll be expecting this time around, it seems like which is a great thing, but then we also have to watch for, like I said, public safety, make sure everyone's aware. These addresses you gave here are the neighbors, I'm assuming, that came and said they had no problem with it being right there because it's going to be near their homes, correct, within that block?
Yep.
Okay.
And just for the record, the trucks are insured as well.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Now, the food trucks, they're considered vendors. Do they have to fill out the vendor fee for that, the vendor application for that?
Well, if it was on borough property, I think the answer would be yes. But since this isn't on borough property.
You don't have to go through it, just the insurance part? Okay.
I think if we could get a certificate of insurance from Holy Trinity naming Morrisville Borough as additional insured for purposes of this event, we would be
that would cover it.
Satisfied.
We'll get that from Monsignor.
Okay. You shouldn't be a problem with that?
He may already have one for some other stuff we do, but
He'll
if
know
not,
exactly.
usually he can call the insurance broker and in like a day or two they email it to him. So
no problem.
Okay.
It's not a big deal.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
There's only 4 people's names on this list. Signatures for neighbors.
5. There's 5 on there.
Well, one's Osborne.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't catch that.
There's more homes than that, is that correct?
Yeah, well, it says in the letter that those were the neighbors they were able to reach.
Okay.
How many times did you go out?
We did knock multiple times. So a resident that lives on the corner there who is neighbors with all these neighbors knocked multiple times, but she didn't have success at everyone. So I'm
Okay.
assuming some people are on vacation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. You said if you've contacted the police department and they're aware of this and they can help you out with the barricades, do that. It's basically very much similar to when someone does a block party.
Right.
And they block this block or from this time to this time, which we have done. So we, do you want us to put this up for a vote tonight for this and get the council's approval?
Well, you don't typically vote at agenda meetings, but we can add this to the agenda for Monday night.
Monday night?
If
Is that
you
good?
wish for
That'd be
us
great
to.
if you can
And
communicate
then if
back.
you could get that insurance paperwork, that'd be great.
Yeah,
For next
I'll
week.
reach out to Monsignor. He's sleeping now. I can assure you that. Okay. I can get it read by tomorrow and have his broker add you as an additional insured.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you for
Have a
listening.
good night. Thank you.
Madam President, I do have a comment. I'm just looking at this, and it looks like the addresses you have, there's only one person that's affected by this. Is there any way that between, say, now and Friday, you could type up a letter and drop it off on each individual house that would be affected so that at least they have something in writing and they know?
When we went to each house, we left a flyer. We wrote a separate letter, very similar to what you have there,
Okay,
but just
great.
stating that we're intending to close the road pending approval. So we communicated that to them as well. And it's our hope to hopefully reach out to them and have a conversation face to face, but we can only, control.
You left a phone number for somebody to reach you if they had any questions,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
So are they going to be, I'm sorry, Justin.
No, I'm done. I'm
Sorry.
happy that they have
I'm sorry.
something in
I
writing
didn't
that
mean
when
to
they
do
knocked,
that.
if
So sorry.
somebody
Jump on
wasn't
in,
there,
Danielle.
there was something they can read and know about it.
So if, for the other people that you don't have on the list that live in that block, are they going to then move their car and park it somewhere else? Are they still going to have access to the street? How?
So I think what we kind of feel like we're being a little generous with the amount of space that we're requesting just to be safe. I think we're pretty confident that we're really only going to be in front of the school. That we're not actually going to block any driveways, but just to kind of give people a heads up that the road's going to be closed. We're not, you're not going to be able to get through.
Okay.
That's kind of what we're thinking. But we're thinking, let's go wider and then break it down smaller if as needed.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to confirm, the one corner house is a resident that's helping us plan this, so she absolutely has no problem. And then 2 doors down, there's actually a driveway for the next resident, and then it's Holy Trinity's parking spots on the other side. So it's really not going to affect too many people that would be parked there to obtain, access to their house.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
And we'll take
Have a great
care.
night.
Have a good night. Okay. All right. We're going to move on to,
Is there any other public allowed to speak? I didn't get a chance to sign it.
just come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. We have 3-minute limit on that. State your name and address for the record, please.
Well, my name is John Buckman, but I go by Jack Buckman, and my address is 617 Rutland Road, Morrisville, PA.
Rutland?
19067. Okay. I have a couple questions. First of all, I heard that there was a proposal to have a 2% earned income tax. Is there any truth to that?
No.
No? Okay. And then it was interesting to see that Capitol Health is proposing to take over the ambulance squad, and it sounded very reasonable. Also, I see now we have a finance director. His name is Micah. Okay. And a borough manager. Now, in the past, I've questioned these kinds of things where we end up having 2 people. Now, I know we got rid of the controller's position, but it seems to me that we have 2 people looking into directing the council as how to run things. It's sort of duplication of services. And I'm concerned that we're needing money, as was described by the finance director, and yet now we have more people doing this stuff. So I don't know what the thinking is there, or when did we do this? I wasn't around when this was going on. So it's just a question. I do know that the municipal authority and the borough have worked the shared services for years. And the reason that we did that was for the same reasons that you're going to continue to do that tonight. I'm also concerned about, if you're saying you need more finances, are you going to raise the real estate taxes? Because that becomes a concern too. Anything that you do in raising taxes affects the values of the houses, because it makes it very difficult for people to live here. And right now, I know that when it comes to earned income, a good portion of our population is not earning a lot of income. So I don't know how much you're going to get from that, but then to expand the real estate taxes kind of depresses the real estate value. So I just wish that whatever you do, you really look into cutting back wherever it's at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll close public comment at this time. We have the approval of minutes. Everyone got the minutes for June 18th, July 10th, July 16th. If anyone has any problems with them, leave them on, remove them, and issue with them. I do know there was several messages that went back and forth about the July 16th ones, why they were done verbatim, when the council made it very clear with a vote that we were no longer doing them verbatim. We spend a lot of time paying for that. So I particularly would rather have them removed and have them done properly, as the council has stated by their vote. I don't know how the other council feels about that, just my personal opinion on that.
I agree.
Has anyone got the minutes?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone have any question on those minutes? No.
No, I agree with you, though.
Oh, you agree? Okay. Is that possible, Scott, to have that done?
Yes, I believe the question is, why was the public comment section of the minutes done verbatim and not in summary form?
It was
not the entire. It was the entirety of the minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Okay, that I don't know. We can check, but
Okay.
if you'd like to save time and expense by us redoing what's already been done to shorten it, we can certainly do that if that's council's pleasure.
Do we have any reason to know why that happened? Two were okay. We've been okay since the vote, and this particular one that ended up in a verbatim?
I do not,
Okay.
but I'd be happy to look into it.
I would appreciate you doing that.
But isn't that more of an expense if you're going to pay to have them redone?
Well, it was an
Yes.
expense to have them done verbatim to begin with.
But I mean, they're already done.
Exactly.
So
So
if
the next time we do that again?
I don't understand what you're saying. But I'm just saying, if they're done,
Right.
why wouldn't you just leave them done because you're going to pay someone to edit them?
Yes, I have to agree. If they're done, we can just, I don't see why would we pay for to redo them, to shorten them. They're done.
Okay. My question would be then, if that's what the council's pleasure is, we can do that and leave that on there and vote them because we paid for them. How does that correct it in the future then? Because this could happen again. We did place a vote, correct?
Correct. And for me, it's not about the minutes. It's about council once again voted on something, put something in place, and it's not being done that way. And it takes the voice from the people away every time that happens.
So I would just appreciate this being corrected in the future. Council wants to leave those on, we can leave those on. Okay. Finance one, you'll all get the bill list, so look it over this week. You'll get that stuff by Wednesday. So if you have any questions on the bills, please contact the office and let them know. They can answer those questions to make things run a little bit smoother. Under the reports, Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to say tonight, or is everything Monday? Okay. Okay, we'll just go down to before I go any further, I had asked our solicitor to please speak on the fireworks law because of recent emails that we were getting about it.
Just push the thing up.
Good evening. Yeah, I didn't bring the ordinance with me, but it doesn't matter. I know it. people think because fireworks they've been liberalized, you can buy certain fireworks that you couldn't buy before. And that's true. You can buy them. And they are now legal to own and actually to use. The problem is the rest of the law hasn't changed. You can't light them within 150 feet of another property, which means basically you can't shoot them off in your yard because probably you're within 150 feet of your neighbor. In my neighborhood, no, you can't do it for the same reason. Everyone's within 150 feet of their neighbor. And so, yeah, and there's all kinds of other restrictions. So I just wanted people to be aware. And also, there are penalties and what have you. And if, in fact, somebody is violating it, you can call the police who will come out and enforce that. It is an ordinance and what have you. The problem, of course, I'm not foolish enough not to understand that somebody lights fireworks and then takes off and then go prove who did it and where and what have you. By the time the police show up, there's just some burning embers and some grass that's burnt or what have you. But I want people to be aware that just because you can buy the fireworks legally right here in town, buy all kinds of really interesting fireworks, you're not permitted to just set them off where you want them to be set off. They have to be set off in a proper way, certain number of feet away, et cetera, et cetera. I just want people to be aware of that. People think because you can buy them, you can do whatever you want. That is untrue. Madam Chairman?
Yes, if you could just, I guess, clarify, because the emails that were going back and forth, this resident that had sent the emails was saying that he felt that the borough needs to put in some other kind of legislation.
Fine.
And is that true for our borough?
Yeah, we
especially?
had that. We had the same issue in all the municipalities you represent. The truth is, the law, there's not really much you can add to the law. There's penalties, there's fines, there's requirements and how they can be used. It's all there. The problem is enforcing it. I mean, the problem is, these are professional fireworks displays. These are people who are just setting fireworks off and then taking off, or by the time someone shows up, you don't know. It's really the issue of how you prove and enforce the law. It's not a question of the law. It's a question of being able to effectively police, so to speak, the law. So any new ordinances or changing the law is unnecessary and won't prove any more successful but I just wanted the public to be very aware of the fact that not to set them off within 150 feet. It is a violation. And I know people do, and I know as a much younger person, I probably was guilty of it myself in Levittown, but I don't think that ordinance was around when I was a kid, so I think it's okay. I think the statute of limitations, Mayor, has passed, so I won't be arrested, thank God.
All right.
Madam President?
Thank you. Thank you for speaking on that. Okay, well, then we're going to move on to our action items. I'm just going to go over them real quick. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
I have something I'd like to bring up for the action items, or at least for consideration for council. I can do it either at the beginning or at the end, at your pleasure.
Okay, sure. You want to speak about
Okay.
that?
The Policy and Ordinance Committee has been looking at the contractors' language in our ordinances. And after a number of meetings, we have reviewed and have some changes we're proposing. I had sent it in to the borough manager. I guess I didn't see it in the packets yet, so it didn't make it out. So, I would be happy whether we decided to put it on Monday or wait longer. But the essential changes would change the responsible contractor's amount from $25,000 to $100,000. As we've seen with our recent bid results, a small project of paving half a street came in at $78,000 for the lowest bidder and up to $120,000. So we felt upping the amount to keep up with, I guess, inflation based on the $25,000 amount that was put in to begin with would be a good thing. And it also removes the requirements for apprenticeships. As you'll see with our bids, the bid tabulation that Gilmore provided to us, this was in the works before we even had the bids, but the two lowest bidders wouldn't qualify for that program either. And if we should or would award to the next lowest responsible bidder according to the current ordinance, it's roughly a 35% increase over the low bid. So we feel that these are some changes that will still have a responsible contractor's ordinance, but will get more bidders.
Okay, and we actually do have something up for consideration, which is the engineers asking us to reject those bids, and we have to reconfigure the bid package to try and get this done. So I do understand what you're talking about. First thing that we have to do, though, if that's the case, is council has to give the authority to give that the amendment changes to the attorney for review. So if it wouldn't be on for Monday, but it would go to the attorney for review. So if the council wishes to send that over to the attorney, we could do that to review that. And then he would bring it back to the council, because then an ordinance change amendment or whether you put it in has to be advertised.
And I believe what we'd be voting on, though, is to spend the money to have the solicitor review it, correct?
Right, to go for his review, yes. So is that what the council wishes to do with this at this point? Is there any?
Yes.
Does the majority say yes? Yes? Yes?
Can I just ask, you said you've had several meetings. Again, I haven't seen any minutes from the policy committee about this. Have you given any sort of report? Because this is the first time I'm hearing about it.
They're in, I think I have 2 meetings. Both meeting minutes were passed on to the borough manager and were in packets that were delivered. And both minutes specifically talked about changes to the contractor's ordinance.
Actually, I think one of those minutes might be in the packets for this Friday.
That's our third meeting.
Oh, that's the third meeting?
From
All right.
3 weeks
Sorry.
ago.
Okay.
So the other ones we've already gotten? Okay. Like I said, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight because it has to go through a process. So if the council majority wants this to go over to the attorney for his review, we can do that. It would have to come back to the council after that. Okay.
And somebody has this proposed language or okay.
Yes. Well, actually, if the chairman could email that to myself, Ms. Cyphers, and the borough solicitor, we can, the attorney will then have it for review. And, or if you just send it to me, I'll do it. But, and we'll include a copy of it in your Friday packets.
Okay. Thank you. Is that good? Okay. All right. Thank you. So it won't be, just so you know, it won't be on the agenda for Monday to vote. It's just going to go to the attorney to have him review it. Okay.
Be advertised.
Yeah, it has to be advertised, yes. And any, yeah, it's an ordinance. Is everybody okay to move on after that? Anything else? Go ahead.
Madam President, I just wanted to request if we could add Yardley Makefield Emergency Unit to Monday's presentation.
Presentation.
For Monday. Yeah.
Okay.
A quick question about that. Have they agreed to come in at this point?
Yes.
Okay. And have we put any consideration to the fact that based on their written proposal, they are asking for items we can't afford to buy for them? Is it a waste? Are we wasting their time by doing this?
Well, the chief actually is here tonight, so he does want to present Monday.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. As long as we're aware.
Okay. All right, then we'll have. And if he wanted to, is he here?
Yeah, he's here.
I don't think he was prepared to present tonight.
We don't want to Shanghai him off guard. But.
Yeah, Monday would be the requested night, if that's possible, please.
Yeah, it's up to him. I mean, he can do it tonight if he wants to. It's up to you. Or come back on Monday, because we
prefer to come on Monday.
Okay.
I really do appreciate your consideration and time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Sure, thank you. Okay, then we'll add that on the agenda under presentations. Okay, we'll move on then, unless there's anything else. This is a work session, just so everybody knows, as we're going all over the place. And this is why we do this. Unfortunately, you're sitting through this. On the action items, 9A is one that we do every year. The mayor will be reading a proclamation for the Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, so there'll be a vote for that, for the Turn the Town Teals. I don't know if anybody has any questions on this motion, especially we have new people on. No? Okay. Next one, 9B, is a call for a motion to appoint Jeff Dorwark to the Vacant Property Review Committee to replace Bob White as the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority's representative. Mr. White has recently retired, and this board is, or committee, I should say, is done under an ordinance, and there's certain people that are on that. And just for the public's records, that you know who was on, because some people get confused that it's just a subcommittee of the council and it's just 3 council, and it's really not. It's more intricate than that. So under this ordinance, it is a member of the Borough Council, which at this time is Mr. Yeager. He's like the liaison for the council. A member of the representative of the RDA, which will now be Mr. DeWark. A member of the Borough of the Morrisville Planning Commission, and at this time on that ordinance is Don Doretto. A member who represents the executive branch of the Morrisville Borough Government, which is our manager, and a member who shall be the mayor of the Borough of Morrisville. So they handle our blighted properties as well as what's called the Vacant Property Committee, but it's under that. So that just everyone knows what that actually is and why we're doing that, vote for that. I think council understands it, right? There's no questions on that, that vote? Okay. Okay, next would be 9C, which is, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's for the bid for our gasoline and diesel fuels contracts through the Bucks County Consortium. You see all the prices are on there. We buy them through a consortium. We do this every year. We also do it with our salt to make sure that we get the best prices for that. So I don't believe there's any questions on that one. Right? Okay. 9D, a call for a motion to approve the emergency operations plan for Morrisville Borough. Any discussion with the officials at this time for this? I really haven't had a chance to look. I've started reading it, but does everyone have enough time to read this or any questions for it? You're okay with it? Everyone? Okay.
I had put in some emails back and forth with the chief with some comments, and I think there may be some minor changes.
Okay.
So I don't know if we would be ready to do this on Monday, because council would have to review those changes.
Okay. It's up to the, do you want to move it to the next month? Does any council want to move it? Have you all had time to read this?
I haven't had a chance to read it either. Not in its.
I'd suggest moving it because it is a 44-page document.
Yeah. And there's a lot of information. If you haven't read through it, you should. And there was quite a few updates that Mr. Bowers suggested that I think were really good.
Okay. It's entirely up to the council. If you, I don't know that's a dire emergency to do it this month. Should we move this, Scott? Does it matter to you at this point?
Not to me, no.
Okay, so maybe we can move it to the September meeting.
September agenda?
Since you guys are just getting this past week and read through it, make sure you have any questions about it. I do appreciate the chief pulling this together for us. We've been asking for this for a while, so I appreciate your time for that. Okay, so how about if we remove 9D for September's meeting? Okay. 9E would be, like we spoke about, the problem with the Plaza Boulevard and the bidding process and not being able to get within the amount of money we're able to spend. So our information came from our engineer is requesting us to reject those bids. 9F would be a call for motion to revise and make adjustments to the scope of the proposed improvements for Plaza Boulevard paving to include a section of Delara Drive and to rebid the project. So we'll look into doing that.
Before we move on from there, Madam President, if I may. Scott, are you aware of which section of Delara we're speaking of on this?
Yes, it's the portion from Trenton Avenue about halfway in.
Okay. All right.
But it's not, it actually doesn't connect to Plaza.
Okay.
There's actually a portion in there that's in pretty good shape.
Yep.
So we're, of course, not going to redo that. We're going to do what looks like a minefield instead.
So you're going to do from West Trenton to Ashdale?
Yeah, so we're going to do the portion of Plaza from West Trenton to the apartments where it leaves off. Then they're going to lift the milling machine, go 2 blocks, drop it and mill and overlay from that point to back to West Trenton.
Okay. And that, I assume that
This is all an attempt to make it more cost effective in terms of the contract pricing.
And do we know from a square footage or square yardage what the impact will be? Positively?
I believe the engineer included that in his recommendation.
All right, I'll take a look. I didn't notice.
I'm not sure I have it at my fingertips.
Okay, no problem.
Scott, if I recollect back when we approved the Plaza Boulevard paving, we had agreed, I think, to, was it 75,000?
No, you agreed to piggyback on the MMA's project using up to $77,000 of liquid fuels funds to join them in that road paving effort. The Plaza Boulevard, I believe the estimate from the engineer was $45,000, and as you can see, we pretty much doubled it.
Okay, so my next question is then, I believe we chose the 45,000 and the 77,000 based on what we had in liquid fuels. If we're now doing 77,000 and he wants to add on more paving, how are we going to be paying for it?
With liquid fuels funds.
So we have more than we were originally going to allocate?
Yes.
Okay.
Plus, this would require PennDOT's pre-approval before we can even spend liquid fuels funds. So once the bids come in, they usually get the prevailing bidder information, and we fill out some forms and we get pre-approval. But this would be, we would be using not only for the MMA project and for Plaza Boulevard and for the addition of Doloro Drive, would be all with current liquid fuels funds available to the borough.
Okay.
Okay. Next is 9G. It's a motion to execute the sub-recipient agreement between the County of Bucks and Borough of Morrisville, and it gives a project number, just so everyone knows what this is. It's an agreement between the county and Morrisville Borough to implement the sidewalk, curbs, and ADA compliances at Patriots Park. So we have to do, just like we did when the building came down and we purchased that land under conservation easement, there has to be an agreement because they're in partnership with us with that property as open space. So just so everyone knows what that is, okay? If you hear a number and you just don't know what that number is, that it's an agreement between us and the county that's mandatory, okay?
Yeah, this is for a grant that we applied for. We were awarded $230,000.
Right.
This is just the contract memorializing that.
So it can be spent down properly.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So this just affects the property that's known, that's currently known rather as Patriots Park, right? This doesn't actually touch Summerseat's property, because Summerseat's not borough property. So
It encompasses the whole block, all of it.
Yeah, this
all the
is
way around.
for the sidewalk and ADA curb ramps for the whole block around Patriots Park and Summerseat.
Do we need their board approval?
However, $230,000 isn't going to do that, which is why you'll see the next item is actually related to this. But we did actually receive a letter of support from
That's enough?
Morrisville Historic Society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a mutual agreement between us with them. And as the manager just stated, 9H is then a motion for the resolution authorizing the application for a multimodal, that's a mouthful, transportation fund grant for the historic Summerseat accessible improvements. So that's just to add to that $230,000 that we have, because that's not going to be enough, so that we can do the other parts of the park.
And Madam President,
Yes.
if that's awarded, the $230,000 that we're being awarded can go towards the match of the new one, correct?
Yeah, the one for the 230 does not have a match to it, it's CDBG. But the one for the 560,000, a lot of times what happens with those, when you get those, they can offset some of the match that you have. Not all of it, but it can, because you're putting out cost out of the borough for soft costs, I guess you'd want to call that. But the idea is to keep these grants back to back so we get a large enough pot of money to be able to do that park. So that's what the multimodal one is for.
Do we know the match for this one? The
I believe it's 15, correct?
15% or
I
15,000?
believe.
15,000?
I believe it's
I believe it's 15,000. It actually was on that
the
grant,
paperwork.
Hold on, I got it.
spreadsheet. Do you
Okay.
have that?
I got it.
Yeah, the engineer sent it.
Yeah, very well, but
15%. Yeah, 15%. Okay. Is there any other questions on those motions? I think everyone got all the information. On 9I, the manager has asked before the meeting began to pull that off, that there needs to be more time to implement that. So we will remove 9I. 9J, let me see. It's a call for a motion to approve the estimate from Quality Services Plus Incorporated for the sign at Patriots Park in the amount of $1,090.50 as per a requirement of the grant. So in order to close out that grant properly, we have to have that sign made. I personally thought we could wait till later, but they want it now. So
Actually, Madam President, we're
Yes.
going to revise the agenda.
Okay.
It's not to exceed $1,050.
Okay.
The borough does not pay sales tax.
Oh, okay. All right. $1,050. All right. We'll take care of that. Any questions on that motion anyone has? I think we all got all that stuff. We understand why we have to do that right now. 9K, everyone saw, we were asked to put this on the agenda because it should, I guess, been done at the beginning of the year, but to approve the annual Winterfest Parade using the previous approved parade route. The Winterfest Parade is to be held on Saturday, December 1st, 2018, and will be sponsored by Hot Rods LLC of Morrisville. Anyone, I don't think, has any questions about that? It's something we do every year. Okay. Is there any other unfinished business?
Is council comfortable with us adding the, I guess it would be 9L or whatever the next letter would be, depending on what's been
Move
adjusted, but the Holy Trinity School special event road closure request?
Yes, you can add that on.
Before we leave the issue of action items, in your folders tonight was a copy of correspondence from the borough engineer regarding the Williamson Park playground improvements. As you can see for that project, there were no bids received. So the borough engineer is requesting authorization to re-advertise
Okay.
and rebid.
Okay. We had nothing come in at all?
Zero.
Zero.
To be honest with you, there's so much work out there for contractors right now. These little jobs are just not an attractive proposition.
Okay. Maybe change that ordinance might help a little bit. I don't know whether we should do this now or wait until Monday. We can do a special meeting, but I mean, if we're going to have another proposal that's going to be done by Yardley Makefield, I think we have all the ones then will be proposed. Does council want to put on the agenda to do a vote, or we want to have a special meeting? Because if you carry this into September, you're going to be running out of some time to probably get this implemented. So I don't know.
We can add it as an action item for Monday night.
Yeah, I was going to say to put in as an action item, then council can choose what they want. I'm just telling you from a legal standpoint and everything else, you're facing an emergency situation.
Right.
You have no time, and I need some time. The proposals are nice, but they still need work. And
Yeah, the council needs to keep in mind that even if you select someone for us to enter negotiations with Monday night, it's going to take time for that person, that entity's legal representation to go back and forth with the solicitor on an agreement to provide service as well as lease terms for the property. And September 23rd is looming. So I need you guys to drill down and make a decision Monday night.
Okay, well, everyone has the one from Yardley Makefield. You have the one from Newtown. You have tonight. You've gotten the one, or was today? Today, I think we got that right. The one from Capital Health. Everyone has all of the proposals. They'll come and do the presentation before the meeting on Monday, but I think we need to put this on the agenda and come up with a vote. So is that okay? Add that on? And okay, we'll handle it then.
It'll be 9M.
You have to redo those letters. Because some were removed. I think there's 2 moving around there. Okay. No new business, correct? We're okay? Okay, at this time then, if there's nothing else for action items, it'll be the borough officials. If you guys have anything you need to say, your committees. And,
Executive session.
oh, I'm sorry. I did forget about that.
Oh, yes, tomorrow, yeah, we should.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes.
we would request an executive session, discuss police negotiations and other legal matters in executive session.
Okay, there won't be any voting on this, so we will close the meeting out and then go into exec so that you don't have to sit here and wait for us because we won't be voting on anything. You're saying thank you, aren't you? We won't make you stick around. Okay, I think that's it, right? So I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. We're done. Sure.